It's Monday, August 3rd, 2026. Time to fire Markwayne Mullin, reopening the Strait for the 500th time, and RFK Jr. speaks for us all next on the AM Update. At the National Governors Association's summer meeting, DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin, he's the guy in charge of ICE, Border Patrol, all that good stuff. You know, the agency tasked with carrying out President Trump's, stated goals, stated promise, campaign promise of mass deportations. He made a lot of people, Markwayne Mullin made a lot of people very upset over the weekend, and rightfully so.
And so what I'm saying is, let me work with you on this stuff. I'm not handling things like maybe the past secretary had. I'm just saying, let's work to get the worst of the worst off the streets, and then you won't see me in your cities and states like you do as much, because my presence won't be as big. In fact, you probably won't even see us at all.
Markwayne Mullin addressing Democrat governors in the room at the National Governors Association summer meeting, saying, just hand over, please hand over the murderers and the rapists and let me deport them. That doesn't sound like mass deportations at all. In fact, that was the promise. That's what we were told is happening, and I'll get to that in a little bit. DHS is claiming some big numbers. I'll get to that in a little bit. That's a far cry from the promise of mass deportations, to go in front of Democrat governors and practically beg them to let you deport the worst of the worst, and saying you won't see us at all if you just give us the worst of the worst. That's not mass deportations. He also made people very upset. This is another clip making the rounds, talking about a pathway for Haitians to stay in the United States.
I encourage people to do is help yourself. You have to try to go through the system legally. If you came over and you got temporary protective status, in its name itself, it says temporary. Yes, we're ending the temporary protective status because it's temporary. But that doesn't mean that while you're here under a temporary protective status, you can't try to change your status. It doesn't mean you can't enroll to try to become an LPR. That doesn't mean you can't go for a family visa. That doesn't mean you have to just stay on TPS status, but you have to make an effort to change. And I can't help you if you can't help yourself.
Markwayne Mullin, DHS Secretary, the guy apparently tasked with mass deportations and making sure America First really is for Americans, coaching Haitians on how to actually stay in the country, those who are here on temporary status. Now, according to Andrew Colvett, he is the executive producer of the Charlie Kirk Show and still filling in on that program for the departed Charlie Kirk. He spoke to a DHS source, he says, posted this on Sunday, quote, a new report on deportations for the last 12 months just dropped, which includes all deportation flights, commercial and government planes. Total alien forced departures of 1.461 million and change. So 1.4 million over the last 12 months alone. The last 7 days of forced removals, 4,291 a day, believed to be a new all-time high. Those numbers do not include self-deportations. So, if those numbers are true, that paints a very different picture than it seems the picture, at least by insinuation, that Markwayne Mullin was painting over the weekend, bragging about 900,000 naturalization ceremonies over the past 12 months. We'll see if those numbers are actually true. Lord knows I hope that they are. Meanwhile, 14 GOP senators now calling to cancel the August recess until the Save America Act passes. Those would be Mike Lee, Rick Scott, Tommy Tuberville, Jim Banks, Ashley Moody, Marsha Blackburn, Roger Marshall, Ted Cruz, Darlene Graham, Bill Hagerty, Katie Britt, Todd Young, Eric Schmidt, Dave McCormick. 14 GOP senators calling on leadership to suspend the August recess until the Save America Act passes. So, seems like at least there's some people in D.C. who care. All right, let's talk about Iran again. President Trump says Iran is getting set to reopen the Strait of Hormuz for, I think, the 500th time. President Trump said on Sunday a deal with Iran over the Strait of Hormuz and its nuclear program is near, while claiming competing factions inside the Iranian regime remain divided. The deal is imminent, having to do with the Hormuz Strait and also ultimately the denuclearization of Iran. Trump made these comments to reporters aboard Air Force One. Continuing, quote, "When I hear that, I say, well, we want to go and do this. There's a group of people that would like to do it. There's another group of people that does not want me to do it." So, same as it ever was. There's your, I think, maybe weekly Iran update. We shall see. Let's go to this. Women's sports yet again. Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark's teammate on the Indiana Fever. We talked about her comments in recent days, protecting girls' sports, standing up for girls who really can't defend themselves against dudes feeling pretty, playing against them on sports teams. Hats off to Sophie Cunningham for that, and she has stayed true to her word. This is her coach, Stephanie White, asked about the ongoing maelstrom controversy around her players' comments.
What's your stance? What is your stance on men or athletes who test as biological male participating in women's sports? What's your personal stance?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would say that I'm educated enough from a scientific standpoint.
All right, WNBA coach Stephanie White, the coach of Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, asked what her thoughts are on men playing in women's sports. Quote, "I'm not educated enough from a scientific standpoint." Stephanie White, Coach White, I've got a question for you. What does the W in WNBA stand for? I'm waiting. Waiting. What's the W in WNBA stand for? Quote, "I'm not educated enough from a scientific standpoint." Over the past few days, there have been young girls, young women, I think female athletes, and I think the high school, maybe the college level as well, have been showing up where Sophie Cunningham is showing up for her games with the Indiana Fever. I think one was in Portland, another in Minneapolis, and these young women are wearing XXXY athletics gear in support of Sophie Cunningham. A few of these young women got heckled, booed, got lashed, a tongue lashing from the owner, one of the co-owners of the Portland WNBA team. Just absolutely abused for standing up for reality. Apparently, the coach of Cheryl, her name's Cheryl Reeve. She's the coach of the WNBA's Minnesota Lynx. She talked to Sophie Cunningham. She's made some statements in recent days, trying to put Sophie Cunningham in her place and standing up for trans kids. In fact, she wore a shirt during the Fever Lynx game the other day. She wore a shirt under her sport coat that said "Protect Trans Kids." And here's what the ESPN broadcast of that game sounded like. Listen to this.
Well, we see Cheryl Reeve wearing a shirt today in support of trans kids. Trans kids belong on the shirt. This in the aftermath of Sophie Cunningham's recent comments. We actually saw Cheryl and Sophie speaking at center court pregame. And yesterday, Cheryl Reeve spent a lot of time talking at length with the media about this topic.
I would encourage anyone to go and listen to Cheryl Reeve's comments. Incredibly thoughtful.
There's ESPN saying, I would encourage our viewers to go listen to Cheryl Reeve's comments, quote, incredibly thoughtful. So what were Cheryl Reeve's comments? Well, here's a sampling. Listen to this.
Before the game, you had a conversation with Sophie Cunningham.
I did.
If you want to share what you talked
Absolutely
about, feel
not.
free. But
Absolutely not.
More of my question is just how important is it to have those like in-person conversations with people that
I think it's
have
great.
different views?
I think it's great. I think both of us understand that we have platforms, and we both talked about wanting to more than anything educate, and there are some things that we have in common and maybe some things you differ on, just like any issues.
Well, it's all about education. Protect trans kids. Just about education. Cheryl Reeves, I have a question for you. I had a question for that other WNBA coach. I have a question for you now as well. You transphobic bigot, why won't you sign a trans woman to play for you? Bigot. Just madness. And the W. That's shorthand That's a common nickname for the WNBA. The W. What does it mean? Nobody knows. Apparently, there's a new women's professional baseball league that kicked off over the weekend. Yeah, it's weird, real, and it's weird. Listen to the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes
I should have let off with that. That is how the opening of the first women's professional baseball league. That's how it got started. So they're doing really well over there in the WPBA, probably something like that. Good Lord. God have mercy on all of our souls. When we come back, an update from Spain, also a big pro-life victory. And RFK Jr. speaks for us all. That's coming up next. The State Department on Saturday raised its travel advisory for Spain's North African enclave of Ceuta to level 3, reconsider travel after tens of thousands of illegal immigrants surged into the Spanish territory from neighboring Morocco, prompting a major security response. The updated advisory warns that the massive and uncontrolled arrival of migrants from Morocco to Ceuta may lead to unpredictable and dangerous security situations. Did you see some of these videos that came out of this Spanish enclave on the bordering Morocco? When you think of border invasion, when you look up the definition of border invasion in the encyclopedia, there's going to be Eagle Pass, Texas, under the Biden administration, and there's going to be some of the images that you saw from the Spanish enclave in northern Morocco. Now, this is a little bit more, it's not too much more complicated. Morocco is claiming that land, that city belongs to them, has long held this, and this is a bunch of Moroccans, and no, they're not a bunch of women and children. No, these are all military-aged, fighting-aged young men breaching the border and storming that city. But that's Spain. They're led by a socialist. Let's go back home. Another pro-life advocate who was prosecuted by the Biden Department of Justice for his pro-life beliefs has won a financial settlement with the federal government. Paul Vaughn, a father of 11, was targeted in a pre-dawn FBI raid on his family's home, complete with agents pointing their guns at him. Much like the similar case of pro-life demonstrator Mark Hook, the Thomas More Society reports the incident was terrifying for his family, including his children, saying the show of force was grossly disproportionate to his alleged crime. Vaughn then faced federal prosecution for his crime of praying, singing hymns, and peacefully protesting at an abortion facility, baby killing clinic in Tennessee. He received 6 months of house arrest following that harrowing confrontation with law enforcement. So that is a win. Hopefully, maybe making an example, hopefully, for the next would-be demonically influenced administration. Don't do this. Federal government does not like to pay settlements. And here they are for this pro-lifer who was unjustly targeted by the Biden administration. Covered Paul Vaughn's story multiple times. Glad to see that hopefully there's nothing that's going to erase that memory for their children waking up some morning and seeing guns pointed at their daddy. Nothing going to erase that. But hopefully this will at least help them move forward a little bit. RFK Jr. went on CNN's, I believe it was State of the Union, with Dana Bash to discuss, rehash the era of COVID. And let me just say, this probably goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, just to be absolutely crystal clear. He speaks for all of us. Listen to this.
You are the HHS Secretary, and you are talking about things that lead to vaccine hesitancy in this country, and it is something that causes problems for people when there is not anything.
Let me ask you something. Do you see your job
as ending vaccine hesitancy, or do you see your job as telling the truth to the American people?
I see my job as telling the truth, and the truth is that there is study after study after study. It's one of the most studied things out there in science.
You're repeating
and it
it
is
like a parrot. You're repeating it like a parrot. I've actually read the science. Let's come back here and debate the science.
I'm not debating this with you.
Of course you won't.
No, because I'm not debating.
All you know how to do is repeat things that people told you and say, trust the experts. That's what you did during COVID. Now we know that Anthony Fauci, who was the expert, was lying about everything, about masks, about social distancing, about natural immunity, about the transmission from the vaccine, about the source of COVID. He was lying, and you were punishing people for not trusting the experts. And now you're rolling out the experts again to talk about something that you have no personal knowledge of.
Okay, well, guess what? That is my job, to talk to people.
Your job is to tell the truth to the American public.
Yes, and my job is to get as much information as I can.
And to maintain
what we were doing,
a posture of serious skepticism.
What we were doing
authority.
in COVID and still, with regard to these vaccines, is getting the best information, the best science that we can, and putting it out there. And, sir, what you are doing is causing information to be out there that is not accurate.
Who was lying to you?
After all of this, after the week that we had out there, Dana Bash, with her room temperature IQ, comes right out and states a conclusion as if it's a premise. Did you see the rhetorical trick that she played there? When she doesn't even probably know it. She states a conclusion as a premise. What is the conclusion that she disguised as a premise? The conclusion is that all vaccines are safe and therefore vaccine hesitancy is bad. That's a conclusion stated as a premise. Instead of working her way from a premise, what does the data say? What are the facts? Are these scientific journals that say vaccines are 100% safe and reliable? Go get them all. Who's funding those? Have you put in the work there, Dana? Have you put in the work? And RFK Jr. astutely comes back with, Anthony Fauci, we just learned last week, Dana. He lied about everything. He was saying one thing in his diary and going out on national television repeatedly saying the opposite. And you want to sit here and tell me about vaccine hesitancy? Retard, heal thyself. That's going to do it for a Monday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.